Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Hello there. I know, it's not going to be Crown today. Hope you don't mind me filling in for him for a day or two as he's going through some stuff right now. Anyways, hope you'll enjoy today's stories nonetheless. I work as a contracted cell phone technician in a big superstore chain. It's a decent gig. I help people with their phone problems and sell them new ones when needed. The best part is, I'm kind of my own boss. I don't answer to the store management, and I usually don't turn people away, even on their bad days. But after today, I might just change my policy. So here's what went down a few hours ago, and it's officially the biggest what the hell moment of my job. It all started when I was quietly doing my thing, and then she appeared, the mythical Omega Karen. I've seen my fair share of entitled folks, but this lady took the cake. Omega Karen was a 65-year-old woman. She had so much makeup on her face that it looked like she had about 4 layers of the stuff, and her hair was this towering beehive monstrosity that made her look like she had a basketball hidden in there. Her hair actually resembled the Omega symbol, hence the nickname. Anyway, Karen approached me with a problem. Her phone wasn't working. Being the helpful guy I am, I started diagnosing the issue. I poked and prodded her phone for a bit, and it didn't take long for me to realize that the phone was bricked. I delivered the bad news. Well, ma'am, I'm sorry to say that your phone is bricked. The best course of action would be to replace it. Luckily, I have the same model on sale for $49.99. Karen, I'm not buying a new phone. I bought this one here, so I want it exchanged. Sure, ma'am. Do you happen to have the receipt for the old phone? And here's where things took a nasty turn. Karen went from a sweet old lady to an Omega. Level Karen in a heartbeat. Karen, listen here, you stupid piece of censored a word I won't write. I bought this phone almost a year ago. I don't have the receipt. I bought it here, and it's now defective. Your company has to honor the guest and replace this broken piece of, you get the idea, free of charge. My jaw hit the floor. She was actually blaming me, a guy she'd never met before, for breaking her phone. I had to keep my cool. Ma'am, I understand you're frustrated, but due to store policy, we can't exchange phones after 30 days from purchase. I realize I just put myself in the line of fire. Karen, but you know what? You're just trying to cheat me out of $50. I'm not having that. It's not my fault. It's a cheap piece of... You get the point. If anything, it's your fault. It's broken. My mind was racing. She was hurling insults and baseless accusations at me. I took a deep breath. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but there's nothing more the store can do for you. However, since you bought the phone less than a year ago, the warranty should still be valid through the carrier. I'd be happy to call them, and before I could finish my sentence, Karen picked up my stapler, raised it threateningly, and shouted, Karen, you will get me a strong language phone right now, or I swear to God, I will throw this at your, another strong word, head. I tried to remain calm. Ma'am, threatening me isn't going to solve your problem. Now, as I was saying, I can call the carrier to check if they can replace it under warranty. Karen slammed the stapler on the counter, breaking it. Furious, she grabbed her broken phone, told me where to go, and stormed off. I couldn't believe what had just happened, but I had to carry on with the next customer. Little did I know that this was far from over. About 5 minutes later, she returned, and this time she had reinforcements. The store manager and the security guy. Things were about to get even crazier. Store manager, hey, Darius? This woman tells me you won't assist her with her phone. Care to explain? I recounted the situation to the store manager, but he interrupted me with a shocking accusation. Store manager, okay, and when did you throw a stapler at her? Confused, I started to explain the truth, but Karen butted in. Karen, nonsense. You threw a stapler at me, saying you were going to choke the life out of me? I want this man arrested for assault. The security guy turned to me. Security guy. Darius, can you back up your story with any evidence? You can check the security cameras. They should have recorded the whole interaction. The moment I mentioned the cameras, Karen went ballistic. Karen, how dare you believe this retarded punk over me? You should be ashamed of yourself. Security guy. Ma'am, we just need to gather all the facts so we can explain everything to the authorities properly. Karen, I don't want to wait for the police. Just fire him and get me someone who can help me. Security guy. Ma'am, you just said you wanted him arrested? Karen, stop putting words in my mouth, young man. Just fire this piece of trash. This is when the store manager dropped the bomb. Store manager. Unfortunately, ma'am, Darius is a private contractor who handles our phones. We can't fire him because he doesn't work for our company. If he did what you're accusing him of, it would be best to get video proof, so we can have him escorted off the property. Karen reluctantly agreed to check the footage, and all four of us went to the security room to review the tapes. But as soon as we reached the part where she grabbed the stapler and threatened me, Karen lost it. Karen, this is crap. All you strong words are in on it. I'm going to sue you all for tampering with evidence. I'll see you all in court. As she stomped toward the exit, she noticed me smirking. That was a mistake. She slapped me and spit in my face. Fortunately, the security guy heard the slap and quickly subdued her. The police were called, and she ended up in handcuffs in the back of a squad car. They asked me if I wanted to press charges, and one look at Karen was all it took for me to say yes. After filling out the paperwork, the store manager apologized to me for the crazy ordeal. He told me that Karen was now blacklisted and would be arrested on sight if she ever set foot in the store again. It was an insane day, but at least justice was served, and Omega Karen was taken out of the equation. Back in the early 1970s, the world was in turmoil, and many young folks were trying to find ways to avoid being sent off to Vietnam or locked up in jail. It was a time of poor morale, racial tensions, and just a general feeling of bad vibes all around. I was one of 4 young men in our early 20s. 3 of us were white and 1 was black. We all worked in a highly specialized technical field that's now dominated by well-paid contractors. Our work area was located aft on an upper deck, and it included a high-end paint booth. This booth became our secret 420 spot after hours because it had an exhaust system that filtered out everything. We could lock the hatch securely, smoke ourselves into a mellow haze, and let the fans take care of the smoke, ash, and even roaches if there was an emergency. That booth really sucked, but in a good way, just like our adventurous fleet followers. One day, after we'd finished our secret session and were walking out, all red-eyed and chuckling, we ran into the chief petty officer who would later become known as Redneck Bigot. Redneck Bigot was an absolute jerk, and no one liked him. I mean, no one, not the E7s, not the crew, and especially not us. His list of misdeeds included false charges that led to bread and water confinement, loss of pay and rank, ship restrictions, extra duties, and much more. His incompetence often put the lives of the men under his command in danger. Fortunately, the chief petty officer we worked for was an awesome guy, and we didn't have to deal with Redneck Bigot very often. However, on that day, our lives took a turn for the worse. Redneck Bigot saw 4 young guys, racially mixed, coming out of an empty paint room looking way too happy. In his twisted mind, we must be up to no good, probably a bunch of hippie homos. And from that moment on, he made it his mission to mess with us at every opportunity. He'd assign us to special details that were basically punishment whenever he could. We were cleaning decks in the scorching sun, removing grease from galley vents, scraping out rotted food from busted reefers, and standing the worst watches. He even subjected us to snap inspections, and he clearly enjoyed every moment of it. But one day, Redneck Bigot went too far. He ordered 3 of us to help clean the nuclear hold and bilges, a job for which we had absolutely no training or knowledge of protocols. To make it worse, he tried to send us down there without the proper safety gear. We could have been seriously messed up, and that would have put the ship and the whole port in danger. Then one day, while stuck painting the Master at Arms' office, thanks to Redneck Bigot, again, one of us overheard plans for the ship's first ever drug dog sweep. We decided to wait until the day before the sweep, and that's when our plan took shape. Back in those days, marijuana was cheap, abundant, and often came with lots of seeds. So, we took the seeds up to the chief's berthing, crushed them against his locker door, and rubbed them all over. We did the same to his rack. Next, we had a brick of lousy weed that we'd been ripped off with. We hid it under the front seat of his 1969 Mustang, right next to a box of baggies in a small scale. And then we sat back and waited for the fireworks. You see, payback can be a real witch. We didn't get to see it, but we heard the drug dog went absolutely bonkers on Redneck Bigot's locker and bunk. The search was thorough, but it turned up nothing. However, suspicions were aroused. So they decided to search his car, and that's when they found our intended setup. Redneck Bigot was taken away in handcuffs, his face beat, red and tears streaming down. We never saw him again. Later on, we heard that Redneck Bigot got a bad conduct discharge and some time in Leavenworth. Morale of the story? Don't mess with the wrong guys, Chief. 20-year-old female. Have 4 siblings on my father's side. My father, 77-year-old male, was married to Maria when he was younger and had 3 children with her. After a few years, my father and his wife decided to get a divorce. It was amicable for the sake of the kids, but my father still loved his ex-wife very much. A while later, my father dated this other woman, Anya, and ended up having a son with her, Leo. Their relationship didn't last long, and my father chose to wait until Leo was a bit older to introduce him to his other kids. He did so when Leo was 6, but his kids didn't take it very well. My mother met my father a while later. They dated and she fell head over heels for him. He broke things off with her, claiming to still love Maria and saying he wanted to try again with her. A few weeks later, he called my mom saying he missed her and wanted to see her. I was the result. He didn't believe I was his. He wanted a DNA test and said my mother was lying. I was born and they did the test. It came back positive. Even then, he never tried to approach my mother nor meet me. My mother insisted that he should give me his last name and he kept refusing to do so she took him to court. It was a very bloody thing. He lied several times, said she tried to baby trap him even though he was the one to approach her, lied about how much he paid for child support for his other kids, turned down visitation rights, etc. I never really missed having a dad. I have a great mother that always gave me love and affection. I asked about him and my mom was always very honest, saying that she contacted him and asked him to meet me, but he refused. I was a bit sad, but the thing that really hurt me was not knowing my siblings. I asked my mother if I could at least meet them, and that's how I found out that my father had never told them about me. My mother said that he and Maria got back together, and he said that Maria didn't want the kids to know. When I turned 18, my mom said that she had found my siblings' Facebook accounts and that we could send them messages explaining the situation. I honestly don't crave a relationship with my siblings anymore, so I chose not to. I explained to my mom that I want to wait until he dies and show up in style at his funeral, preferably wearing a black dress with heels, huge sunglasses, and a hat. I feel like the people that admire him should know how he really is. Also, even if he doesn't put me on his will as one of his children, by law, I have to appear at the hearing anyway. Maybe I'm a jerk for wanting to do that to people that love him and are mourning him, and I sort of feel bad about that. But I feel like his name should be dragged through mud for what he did, and the only way to do that would be in a place where everyone in his life is gathered, and they can't manipulate the events through the grapevine of gossip. So am I the jerk for wanting to expose my father at his funeral? Comment. Yeah, I kinda do think you are the jerk. First of all, how exactly are you going to make sure everyone in his life finds out who you are at the funeral? Are you going to interrupt proceedings and shout it to the room? That's serious jerk behavior at a funeral. But let's say you figured out a good way to make the announcement. Yes, you're dragging his name through the mud, but who are you hurting? Not your father. He's dead. Literally everybody else there. And most of those people are innocent bystanders. On top of that, if you're definitely going to meet your siblings eventually, it's kinder to them to do it while they can still confront their dad. Express their feelings, demand answers, whatever. You are the jerk. Your beef is with him, not his wife and children. What good would it do to upset his surviving loved ones after he's dead? He'd never be held to account for his actions anyway, and you'd only succeed in hurting innocent people. Look, I'm not going to call you the jerk for not wanting to reach out to them right now, or ever. But as someone with a few more years of experience, I can promise you that revenge fantasies like that never play out the way they do in your head. And it's better to try to find peace with your life as it is than to pin your emotions on a scene that could end with you being removed from the venue by force, or have the whole situation twisted to still find a way to make you the bad guy. In our mid-20s, my husband, I purchased and moved into our rather modest first house with our infant daughter. It may be a big effort to befriend our neighbors, and all of them warned me to be careful of one particular person, Jane. Jane had lived in the street for 3 years at this point and had earned herself the nickname Big Fat Jane as she was manipulated, intimidating, and thoroughly awful. Jane ran a daycare from her house, but neighbors on both sides reported hearing her scream at the children and leave them unsupervised in the garden. It's important to note that Jane's partner is a police officer. The neighbors were scared of retaliation if they reported her or stood up to her. It seemed Jane would use this to get away with her horrific behavior. Our house had a driveway with a drop curb big enough for one car, but we could fit both if you blocked in the first and only used the second car. Parking on the street was very limited, and we had double yellow lines outside our house. Not allowed to stop parked there. During some essential roof work, our driveway was taken up by scaffolding and a skip, so we parked in the street. My husband parked outside Big Fat Jane's house. The next day, when he went to his car, Big Fat Jane came running down her path shouting at him. She screamed about his antisocial parking, that his car would be towed, and that he could expect it to be scratched up if he left it there any longer. My husband calmly explained it was a public road and she had no right to police the space. Her screeches at this point were loud enough that I and several neighbors heard and came to see the commotion. Her partner was perched at the door during all of this, saying and doing nothing. When she saw me on the pavement with our daughter, she pointed and screamed, "You'll have the social on you if you don't get lost. I'll scratch you right up." At this point, I told my husband to come back and we were calling the police. She responded, "Call the police." "I dare you. He's," pointing at her partner, "a policeman. He'll sort you out. You won't know what hit you." At this point, my husband looked at her husband and said, "Is that right? And you're agreeing with what she said?" The partner nodded and said, "You need to move or accept the consequences. You call the police. It won't get you anywhere." Funnily, when I then took out my phone and dialed the non-police emergency number on speakerphone and made a police report, both of them looked a lot less confident. Big Fat Jane stood there, open-mouthed, then grabbed her partner and slammed the door. And we haven't heard from her since. Her partner was placed on suspension due to the allegation and further allegations from our neighbors. He then returned to an admin role. After our confrontation, Big Fat Jane was given a warning for a public order offense. However, due to a number of reports, her daycare closed and she is no longer able to mind children. Their house is up for sale, however, as she made a number of modifications without proper planning or work. People, its price is significantly lower than they expected, and they're in negative equity, all because of a parking space.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.